Allende, and I decided to reach out to them. And I connected to the most lovely young woman I would ever hope to meet, who you're going to hear from tonight. Her name is Zara Martinez Borden. And we got to talking, and I said, well, I want you to meet some people here in Chicago who are doing some wonderful things. And from that, that's why we're here tonight. So I connected Zara to the group at Paint the City, who have been doing some wonderful things in the city of Chicago. And we have great plans together. But this conversation tonight is the kickoff to that. You're going to learn a little bit more about Instituto Allende, the students there. You're going to learn more about Paint the City and the work they've been doing. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the conversation over to our moderator, a longtime friend, Rebecca Zorach, who is a professor at Northwestern University and literally helped write the book about murals here in Chicago. So Rebecca, thank you for doing this, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Patricia. I'd like to ask everyone who's a participant to mute themselves at this moment. And I also want to ask that everyone
earlier today.
Actually, maybe I might be able to. Okay, great, thank you. If everyone who came in just now as we're starting could change your name to your actual name. So everyone's using Patricia's link. And that means that you appear as Patricia Andrews Keenan on our screen, and it'll help a lot for the Q&A if I can call on you by name. So the way to do that is, there are two ways to do it. Either go down to the bottom of your Zoom screen to all the little icons, and one of them should say participants. And there, if you click on the little arrow, or sorry, if you click on the participants, you'll get, I think, a list over to your right, the upper right, and you should be able to change your name by clicking on, clicking where you show up as Patricia Andrews Keenan, me. The other way you can do it is to click on Patricia's name as it appears in your own little box, and you'll get a menu, and one of the options is rename. So I hope everyone is able to do that, because I think it'll help our conversation a lot to be able to all kind of to know who's in the room, and because we do hope to have a lively discussion following the speakers. So I'll let you all do that. I might give you another reminder to do it a little bit later on. I'm going to start by sharing my screen and talking a little bit about, just very, very briefly, about the history of murals in Chicago, and in particular, the relationship between the history of community murals in Chicago and its relationship to the Mexican mural movement, and the knowledge that, in particular, Black artists, but other mural artists as well, had in Chicago over the years of the history of murals in Mexico. So I'm going to share my screen. And okay, I'm beginning with the Wall of Respect, created by the Organization of Black American Culture, called OBASI, in 1967 at the corner of 43rd and Langley in Bronzeville. And this was a major intervention by Black artists on the streets of the city, and it really sparked a national community mural movement, both in Chicago and all around the United States, involving artists working collaboratively with community members to create images that were meaningful to those members of the community. It included both painters and photographers who were members of the what's called OBASI, OBAC, Visual Artists Workshop. And I just wanted to point to some connections between OBASI and the Wall of Respect and the Mexican mural movement. So, for example, William Walker, so you see his mural painting on the right, History of the Packing House Worker, which is at 4859 South Wabash in Chicago. And it still exists. Many of the Chicago murals that I'm going to show images of don't exist anymore, but this one does. And you can see, I think, the connection between this narrative of unionization in the packing houses of Chicago and the struggle for workers' rights, the connection to the Diego Rivera mural, Mexico Today and Tomorrow, which is part of the History of Mexico murals, very important set of murals in the Palacio Nacional in Mexico City. The interest in these particular kinds of figures, the sort of negative figures of the bosses, and the ways that the images are composed using these pipes and metal bars as compositional elements to kind of create different spaces within the mural. There definitely is a connection there, I think, between Rivera and Walker. So Walker, looking back on this earlier, decades earlier, classic mural by Diego Rivera, one of the three mural artists, along with Orozco and Siqueiros, who are the referred to as Los Tres Grandes, the three greats of the Mexican mural movement. This is an homage to Diego Rivera by a muralist, a Mexican-American muralist in Chicago named Marcos Raya. So this is from 1972. And many Chicago artists traveled to Mexico and were inspired by the Mexican mural movement and also by the graphic arts printmaking in Mexico. So I'm just giving one example here. Margaret Burroughs, who was a co-founder of both the Southside Community Arts Center and the DuSable Museum. She took a sabbatical from teaching high school in Chicago in 1953 to go travel to Mexico and to study at the Taller de Gráfica Popular, which is a very important printmaking workshop that was very much focused again on like workers' struggles. So there's also a really important connection to social justice issues, the workers' struggles, the left, that's uniting some of these artists with some of these Chicago artists with their Mexican counterparts. And just an image on the right showing one of many prints that Margaret Burroughs created over the course of her career. Another one of the Wall of Respect artists, Barbara Jones Hogu, also traveled to Mexico later in the late 1960s, 1968. She traveled to Mexico both to meet with Elizabeth Catlett, who is an African-American artist who had passed through Chicago as a young artist and then ended up settling in Mexico. And so Jones Hogu went to meet with her and learn from her, and also to photograph murals. Unfortunately, she lost her camera, and all of her photographs of the murals were lost, but she still was inspired by things she saw in Mexico, including both Catlett's sculpture, Homage to My Young Black Sisters, and the 1968 Olympics that occurred in Mexico City in that year, famous for the raised Black Power fists that Tommy Smith and John Carlos did on the victory podium. So that Jones Hogu was very much impressed by this imagery and incorporated it into her own work as well. In particular, this Unite print, which one of her most visible, most important silkscreen prints that she produced as a member of Afrocobra, another collective of Black artists in Chicago that grew out of Obasi. This is a mural on the left by Mark Rogovin. It's called Protect the People's Homes. It's about protecting people's homes from developers and the expansion of institutions like DePaul University and other universities. There were a lot of fights over gentrification, not only on the south and west sides, but also on the north side in this time period. And he had apprenticed with Siqueiros in Mexico just prior to coming to Chicago. And I think you can see some connections between his work and Siqueiros's work, the mural that you see on the right, another very important mural in Mexico City. And then another inspiration that a Chicago artist took from a Mexican mural is this mural by Don McIlvaine, painted in North Lawndale in 1969, Black Man's Dilemma. And he took as inspiration the Conquest of Energy by Jose Chavez Morado, also at UNAM in Mexico City. And you can see, especially in the figures in the lower right, it's not really visible in the large shot of the mural, but this is a detail from a black and white image of it. You can see this figure who's in McIlvaine's mural. It's a Black man who's been murdered by a dagger that actually has the Bill of Rights is being like stabbed into his chest. It's a very kind of strong political message. and the kind of making the point that the Bill of Rights isn't protecting him from violence, and this fallen figure on the right of the Mulatto mural is clearly the inspiration for McIlvain's painting. So just wanted to, as we start thinking about what's going on in Mexico, what's going on in Chicago, and elsewhere with mural painting, with graffiti art, I thought it would be nice to see a little bit of the kind of historical connections between Mexico and Chicago in terms of mural painting. So I'm going to do some introductions of the rest of the speakers who are going to talk about the work that they've been doing as artists, and also give us a little bit more of a history of the Mexican mural movement. So I'll go in order, and after I introduce everyone, they'll all speak in turn, and then we'll hold questions until the end, but I hope we'll have a lively conversation after everyone has spoken. So first, Zara Chandra Fernandez Martinez Borden is Director of Operations of the Instituto Allende, a visual and plastic arts university incorporated into the University of Guanajuato. Although her degrees are in business administration and marketing, she strongly believes in the importance of the arts, and her work with low-income rural schools in San Miguel de Allende gives her life. Next will be Leon Curry, a Black and Mexican-American queer visual artist from the Twin Cities in Minnesota. They're a 2021 graduate of the BA program at Instituto Allende and interested in themes of identity, connection, and community. I should say I'm not exactly sure whether Leon or Bo will speak first, but they've been working together. So next I'll introduce Bo Hennis, a Mexican-American non-binary artist from Minneapolis, Minnesota. They're a 2021 graduate of the BA program at Instituto Allende, also focusing on themes of identity and social justice. And then next we have Missy Perkins, co-founder of Paint the City. She's an art curator, artist, event coordinator, and art and music manager. Missy has curated over 100 art exhibitions and produced events with strong roots in Chicago's graffiti, street art, and underground hip hop scene, including Chicago Loop Alliance Activate Alleys, Wicker Park Fest, and Logan Square's yearly Battle for the Eagle hip hop event. Finally, last but not least, Barrett Keithley is co-founder of Paint the City. He's an artist well-renowned for his murals and creative art experiences throughout Chicago and beyond. He's had art placed at the Museum of Science and Industry, the DuSable Museum, and the WNDR Museum, or maybe that's the Wonder Museum, I'm not sure. He's curated, co-curated, and painted murals at countless art events within Chicago, including Activate Alley, Wicker Park Festival, Halloween, and My House Music Festival. So I know we're going to have a great conversation, some great presentations, and then a great conversation with these artists and arts administrator. With that, I'll turn it over to Zara, and I will stop sharing.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, and thank you for inviting me to participate in Black Fine Art Month. I'm very excited. And at this moment, I'm just going to share my screen and I'll get our presentation going. So as Rebecca mentioned, I'm Sara Fernandez and I'm representing the Instituto Allende School of Art and Spanish, and also known as the Fundación de Arte Enrique Fernandez Martinez, AC. So the Instituto Allende was founded in 1950, as well as incorporated to the University of Guanajuato. Over the 70-some years, we have formed thousands of national and international artists, some of which are working, producing, and shown in art museums all over the world. We offer accredited programs such as bachelor's degree, master's degrees, everything do with visual and plastic arts. And we also offer a variety of workshops to the general public, so textiles, painting, stone sculpture, jewelry, printmaking, and even into the art therapy programs. We are also an official Spanish school that for those who want to learn a second language, and we're also affiliated with the Veterans Affairs of the United States, offering and providing the GI and post 9/11 bill. Let me just see, my screen is not turning. And so here in this photo, we can see two of the four founders of the Instituto Allende. This photograph was probably taken in the early 1950s and is Enrique Fernandez Martinez, and to his side, Nell Harris. In this photograph, you can see an exposition of students actually, and you can see that the American flag and the Mexican flag, because we have strong relations with the United States, and many of our students are from the United States or Canada or Europe. And in this photo, actually, you can see the Fernandez family, which is Mr. Enrique Fernandez Martinez, Nell Harris, Barbara, Rodolfo, and Jaime. And you can actually see part of the mural, which was painted by James Pinto, like around 1950, 1951. And here I am actually 69 years later in the same room with the same mural behind me. So it's a pleasure to know that. As I mentioned, we offer a wide variety of workshops, letting each student express themselves freely and work on their personal projects. For example, this is a student, Elizabeth Starkovich. She is a master weaver, and one of her works, this is for the women's right and the women's protest here in Mexico. And speaking with her, she had mentioned that each tone of pink represents all women of Mexico and the world. And this is mostly to stop violence against women, as well as women's rights. So getting into a little bit of muralism. Muralism was an artistic movement that emerged in Mexico in the 1920s. The artists who participated in it tried to express their vision of national identity and social and political situation of the country. Muralism was distinguished by having an educational purpose that sought to spread part of the Mexican culture and life to mass public. So most of the works were made on walls of public buildings. So the first mural that I will present is from David Leonardo, which was this was finished in 2006, and it's a full 360 mural of the main academic office. And this mural is called Las Bellas Artes, which is the beautiful art, and it depicts all sorts of like scenic and visual plastic arts. This mural here was from James Pinto, the same artist that did this mural behind me in 1959. And James Pinto was actually primarily a student, but later on he became a teacher, one of the favorite teachers, and a very loved, cherished, close friend to the Fernandez family. This is another mural painted by David Leonardo in 2017, named Genesis and Destiny of the Art Spirit, which was dedicated to his late parents. And David Leonardo is originally from Mexico City, but he's been living in San Miguel de Allende for more than 30 years. And he has painted other public art in the public library, in private homes, and here at the Instituto Allende. One thing I didn't mention at the beginning is the murals that I'm presenting are murals that are actually in the Instituto Allende. We do have many other murals in San Miguel de Allende, and there's coming more. So this is our newest mural, and it's called Fe en la Tierra, so Faith Earth, and it's by Claudia Magli. She's actually originally a film director, but she wished to continue her studies and began studying her bachelor's degree at the Instituto Allende in visual arts. And she graduated in 2014. And in 2016, 2017, she began to plan this mural. And until January 2018, she started painting. So the vision of the mural is to transmit their own faith in nature and show the two complementary genders and their union in the face of fire. The wisdom and achievements of the holy trees begin human beings. Peace is possible on earth. There's only one race, and it's the human. As you can see in the mural, the sun in the middle is the central figure in the mural. The sun represents everything in our own experience, represents strength and unity. On the right-hand side, we see the feminine side of the mural. So basically it portrays a woman's body, how the earth bears the fruit and the community. And then on the left-hand side is the masculine side, which is to do strength, power, and struggle. Although technically today we don't really identify gender roles, but in this mural they are they're specific. So going back, underneath the sun, we are able to see a community that is confirmed of all races, ages, who are sharing food, talking, music, and singing. And it's basically the human community. And going here, these are the original designs of the doors, and it's made out of a coba wood, which is an American wood, but it was detailed by hand by Juan Alonso Ramirez, who is originally from San Miguel de Allende, and him and his family have dedicated his life to carpentry. So here in this image, we can see how the mural extends to the doors, and so we have the hands of peace, and on the other side we have the parroquia, which is basically the main emblem of San Miguel de Allende. So everybody knows San Miguel just by looking at the church. All of this was done in workshop number 35, which was basically built to receive light from the north, which is the best quality of natural light that exists to be able to paint. This mural took over 1,000 hours and 2 years to complete. And during this process, she learned that freedom of movement, that is to say, creativity is unique in each individual. It allows us to distinguish the work of one author to another, and only if that freedom from the back is contained and geometric rigor does it allow the harmony of the whole world to be maintained. And Claudia, when presenting the mural, she claimed that there's only one race, and that is human, and that our community and the different parts that make up the community are just as important. So I'm going to move on to the mural of Ignacio Allende y la Historia de México, which is Ignacio Allende is a war hero here in Mexico, and especially here in San Miguel de Allende, and about the history of Mexico. This was also painted by David Leonardo in 1999. And so I'm going to split up the segments of the mural just so we can put attention to a few details. So the first, this is probably one of the most important parts of Mexico, is the colonization from Spain. As you can see, they came in with their knives, their armor, and they colonized the community, the indigenous community. And usually where the holiest areas, the temples of the indigenous, could be the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Chichimecas, whichever, they actually built the city center on top of their temples. So destroying the temples and building the city center. One great example of this is the Catholic Cathedral in Mexico City, was actually built upon Templo Mayor, and I guess a few decades ago, they discovered that the temple was underneath, and still to this. And kind of in the middle, you can see the Catholic Church imposing their Catholic religion on the indigenous group. On the second slide that we have here, I'm going to go over a little bit of history with all of you, which is we have 4 groups of classes, or classicism back in the day, which was the Spanish Peninsulars, who are Spanish born in Spain and entitled to positions of higher political hierarchy. And then we have the Creoles, Spanish born in Mexico, and they had all the privileges like money, education, but they did not have the rights to greater political hierarchy. And then following that, we had the Mestizos, who are a mixture of Spanish with indigenous. That group of people were allowed the right to education, but you were typically a lower class and typically play a role in the economy as a merchant or something like that. We had the indigenous people, who are the natives in Mexico, and they were relegated and poor, and they were highly exploited by the Spanish and typically worked as a farmer. Next, we had the mulattoes, and there were 2 types of mulattoes. And the mulattoes are Spanish and African. We don't typically use that phrase today, but they were a free mulatto, which basically works in a field, and then they were slaves. And they did not have the right to education, and like the indigenous, the mulattoes had little to none right. They didn't have any rights. So after speaking about that, in this area, we are able to see the independence of Mexico, which is one of the most important celebrations that we have to this day, which marks after 300 years of slavery and then also exploiting different areas. The independence was actually created by the Creoles, which were Spaniards born in Mexico, and who basically saw the injustice within the new Spain, which is Mexico, towards lower classes, human rights, right to education, and mainly social equality. So we're going to continue on here. And on the left-hand side, we can see in the black suit, Miguel Hidalgo, and on the white horse, we have Ignacio Allende. And underneath the horse, we have the Saint Michael Archangel, who is the patron saint of San Miguel de Allende. And here basically is you're able to see a little bit of the women who also fought in the independence. And the next slide, we're seeing images in middle. We can see Benito Juarez, who's the ex-president of Mexico, and he actually separated the church and state and limited the power of the church to society. And you can also see the Mexican Revolution, which calls for re-elections for governors, which aims at social equality to ensure the regulation of government and avoid dictatorship. And on the right lower hand corner, we have Emiliano Zapata, who is painted, and he was the leader of the rights of the farmers, claiming that who works the land has the right to the land. Over here, we have the Constitution that gives equality to education, the right to work, and the rights of the workers. We can also see the feminist movement on the upper side. And at last, you can also observe the educators, the artists, and representing in the middle right-hand corner, 3 of the 4 founders of the Instituto Allende. So this is just it's basic, sorry. And in the middle, we can see the indigenous group that still exists and are represented in the new era. So one of the phrases of Ignacio Allende was, regardless of the size of the city or town where men and women are born, they are ultimately the size of their work, of their will to magnify and enrich their brothers. So what does that mean? It's basically, what are we able to do to better off our community and our society? And unfortunately, the fight today still for social justice and equality still exists. San Miguel de Allende is the central area of Mexico, and it's also considered the heart of Mexico. And some people can classify it maybe as the Disneyland of Mexico, but it is rich in culture, and we also consist of 542 communities that are rural areas with incomplete services. Some communities lack transportation, communication, technology, and at times water is limited. In the education area, they're usually Unitarian schools, and there's different types of schools. There's some schools that are larger and have 150 to 200 students, but many of the most isolated community schools are Unitarian, and that means that from grade 1 to 6, they're all placed in one classroom with one teacher, and there's typically from 18 to 30 students per class. Which, considering they do make a huge effort, but the quality of education is not the same as in the urban areas. I do believe that classism and racism still exists in Mexico, and typically the same marginalized people appreciate themselves less in base of the ideology which was imposed starting since the Spanish conquest. Not all are affected that way, but unfortunately there is still a large percentage of people that are heavily affected. And at the Instituto Allende, we have a program that's called Rodarte. And what we do is we take plastic and visual arts workshops, and we work with the directors or the teachers of each school to ensure that we're taking account of their needs also. But we usually spend about 5 years in each community. We work with the children on Saturdays, and these are usually isolated and rural communities. It's a beautiful experience, and I also learn much about them. But our main purpose is to allow them to see the opportunities that exist, for them to be able to express themselves in a healthy manner and also explore different ideas. Typically speaking, a child in primary school, the percentage is very low for that person, that student, to continue on to secondary school, because they're viewed as a younger adult and they usually start to work because the family is in need of labor. And it's not to have an economic power, if not to sustain the family. So to have dinner or lunch or breakfast on the table. So it's a different culture. And I believe like in the 542 communities that exist, there's so many subcultures, and each of which are so beautiful. And what we try to do is empower these students to see that there's more to life and there's more ways to express. So these are some images. With Rodarte, we've worked with Tennessee State University, Texas A&M University. We have volunteers. We work with about 7 different teachers, and we do different workshops each Saturday. We try to play literature in it. And this is the group from Lagunilla. And really, at the end of the day, at the Instituto Allende, we do believe that art is a means to reflect, transform, and develop the human spirit. And art reinvents the world and celebrates life and freedom. One really important thing, we don't censor. We don't censor our students whatsoever. We help them through the process of creation, and usually the results, as you can see with Claudia's work and with Leonardo's work, the results. And at the end of the day, art and freedom go hand in hand for any human mind. It does not matter if they are dedicated to art, but it opens the door to freedom and spirit. And at the end of the day, freedom and respect is the function of art. So I'm gonna finish off my presentation, and I thank you for being with us. And I'll pass on the mic to Bo and Leon.
Hi, everyone. I'm just gonna open my presentation right now. You have to share it first. All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Bo Hennis. I'm a Mexican-American non-binary artist from Minneapolis, and I graduated this spring with a BA in visual arts from Instituto Allende. My work is generally focused on themes of identity, diversity, and social justice. And the mediums I work in the most are painting, drawing, digital art, and photography, but I work in some other mediums as well as that.
Hi, I'm Leon Curry. I'm a Black Mexican-American queer visual artist, and I'm also a recent graduate of Instituto Allende. Like Sara explained, it's a visual arts university located in San Miguel de Allende, Guanajuato, Mexico. I work in various mediums, and I focus on themes of identity and community and how to build connection through shared experiences.
So a question that we both get a lot is, why did we go to Instituto Allende, and why did we choose to go to university in Mexico? So we wanted to answer that, and I'm just going to start out with that me and Leon are partners, and we are collaborators with our artwork. We're both visual artists, and we went to high school together, which is how we met. we're both Mexican American, and we both really wanted a college experience where we could both learn Spanish a little bit more, because we both took it in high school, but I think everyone knows it's a lot easier to learn Spanish from actual Spanish speakers who have been speaking it their entire lives. So we wanted that, and we also wanted to go to school in a place where we could really connect with our Mexican heritage. So my grandma actually took a class at the Instituto Allende a really long time ago. And when I was looking for universities that I'd be interested in, I was keeping in mind these things that I wanted to do, like learn Spanish, getting in touch with Mexican, like my Mexican side and Mexican art. And so I decided I'd go and check out this school. And when I saw it, I was really impressed. I thought it would be an amazing place to have a university experience at. So that's how we ended up there.
We both decided for our first semester away from high school that we could take an immersive Spanish semester at Instituto Allende. So on top of taking classes every day, we also just tried to explore the city and speak in Spanish as much as possible, like asking for directions, going to the grocery store. And through that, we just, we really felt connected to the artistic community in San Miguel de Allende, which led some of our Spanish teachers to convincing the teachers in the BA program to let us sit in on classes. And through that, I realized A, how much I had to learn, and then B, that I just felt really excited about being at Instituto Allende. So that led us to enrolling in the BA program there. Throughout the 9 semesters of university, students at Instituto Allende are offered a variety of classes, such as painting, drawing, sculpture, photography. We have theory classes like art history, printing, engraving, and design.
These are just some pictures of San Miguel de Allende that I wanted to include because it's such a beautiful town, which is of course another reason that it drew us to the city itself. But for more about Instituto Allende specifically, another advantage that we got to experience from studying here was getting the opportunity to learn traditional Mexican art forms from professors who actually studied, worked in Mexico, and were fully immersed in just the traditional version of the art form that they were working with. And so some of those forms that we learned were ceramics, and we used the clay that was actually from, like, it was like the local clay from the ground where we lived. It was like super locally sourced. It was fresh when we got it. It was just like such an amazing experience that I don't think we could have had anywhere else. It was completely different than just pottery on a wheel. It was this really, you got this really like intimate feeling with the clay where you were able to create whatever you wanted. It didn't just have to be like a pot or a bowl or something like that. Yeah. It could be, our teacher really encouraged us to make it something more than that, and to really think about the fact that the clay came from the earth, from where we were living and breathing, and like it was like a part of us, and basically we were encouraged to use this material to really show like what was inside of us and how we connected with the earth, basically. So these are some of the examples of Leon's work that they made in that class, and then some examples that I made. And we also got really in touch with the traditional form of weaving with another professor there who teaches the patterns of the native people of San Miguel and also dyes the wool with the plants that grow in San Miguel. So that was a really amazing experience that, I mean, we know that we couldn't have had anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. So due to the small student body of Instituto Allende, we were able to form a really close-knit community between teachers and students. I don't think that at any time we had classes that were bigger than 15 or 20 people. And our teachers, because of that, we had a lot of one-on-one time or groups of 4 people. That was what our semester size was. And our teachers would arrange workshops at their personal studios, and they would bring artists in as well. So here we are at our teacher Ana Gomez's studio, and on the image on the left, we attended a workshop outside of school where we learned about textile sculpture, and on the right is a photo of us listening to an artist speaking about her recently completed thesis, and that was an artist that I would have never heard about from Mexico City. And then we also attended workshops hosted by Rocio Gordillo and Alejandro Mejia at their workshop and gallery space, Tres Espacio. And they brought in guest artists also from Mexico City, David Miranda, Daniel Toca, and they also brought in a contemporary art curator, Violeta Orcasitas, and they gave us the opportunity to show our portfolios one-on-one with an art curator who had worked in galleries in Mexico City. So that was a really big deal for us.
And museums. Even.
Yeah.
As a curator she was a curator for museums and galleries. So that was like a really awesome experience that we got to have.
Right, yeah, it was a group of maybe 15 students who chose to participate in an outside of school workshop, and we got that one-on-one experience, which is really unique, you know? So one of our university's requirements is working professionally in a public service project. So
Sarah found out about this great opportunity that we had to collaborate with Pigment and also with Paint the City. So we're really excited about working like in collaboration with people from, I mean, we're from Minneapolis, Instituto Allende in San Miguel, and then now we also have these awesome collaborators from Chicago. And we know muralism has such an extensive history in Chicago, has such a rich history in San Miguel, as Sarah explained, and in our school. And then in addition to that, me and Leon have also seen how impactful muralism has been for our community in Minneapolis for, I mean, the past few years with the events that have happened. And I'm just gonna let Leon get into that, like the specifics of that a little bit.
So after the murder and subsequent trial, the murder of George Floyd and the trial of Derek Chauvin, we saw the way that public art and specifically muralism brought the community together. And we've continued to see that strength and community sense. And through our project, we kind of wanted to bring that same energy into the mural that we are in the process of making right now.
So we're so excited about this project and that it will allow us to share and connect with so many other artists, not just in our school, but also those involved in pigment and in Paint the City. We're so excited to basically just merge all of our ideas and all of these experiences that we have with this new project. And we really want to say thank you to Sara and to everyone from Pigment and from Paint the City for helping us make this possible, because this project is going to be amazing.
So yeah, that's it from us. We just wanted to say where you could find us.
If you want to get in touch, or you have any comments or suggestions for us, or you just want to check out our pages and follow the project, we're here. This is our Instagram and Facebook, and then Leon's Patreon. So
Thank you.
Okay, Barrett and I can go next if Rebecca has our screen to share.
Okay, I think I can do that with, I thought, yes, got it.
got it.
Okay, and here you go.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm Missy Perkins, one of the co-founders of Paint the City. I am also a art curator, artist, event coordinator, and manager. I've been working in the creative community here in Chicago for 12 years now. And that's actually how I met Barrett, was through doing these big art and music cultural events that him and I have been doing for probably like, gosh, 7 or 8 years now, which is why Paint the City was actually an easy thing for us to find, because we had such big roots here in the creative community and the visual community. So it was just something that was bound to happen to be our brainchild at some point in time. And yeah, I'll let him talk a little bit about himself.
How you all doing? My name is Barrett Keithley, co-founder of Paint the City, artist, muralist, creative, curator, just all around expressive. That's what I always say. And to Missy's point, yeah, we met because we had, created a strong root in the artist community. I started about 8 years ago, and as we were working, you will see that it was kind of hard to find reliable people and trustworthy people. And that's just kind of how Missy and I was able to bond, was the fact that we could always rely on each other and trust each other when it came to just anything, on in terms of planning and trying to execute on ideas. And when the George Floyd riot started to happen, and it was kind of just instinctive for us to go out and organize an artist that we knew or know, and put up murals. And so it's just, we just did what we know how to do, which was create artwork. And it was amazing because for us, we didn't think about how big Paint the City could become. It was more so, let's just do what we do. And I think when it comes to art and me creating murals, I think we share with a lot of artists that same type of instinctualness, where it's just, this is what we do, this is what we are, and we have to create, we have to express ourselves. And me personally, I didn't know that Chicago had such a rich history in muralism until Patricia from Pigment International explained it to me when I called her and said, "Hey, Patricia, I'm starting this idea with Paint the City, and we're moving, and she was like, "Oh my God, man, that's great idea." And, Chicago has rich history. She started, started teaching me, and I was just like, "Wow, okay, okay, some good shoes to fill, a legacy to keep moving forward, and I'm happy to be doing it." So that's my little background.
Yeah. You can go to the third slide, Rebecca. Sorry, it was. This one. So yeah, basically, Paint the City, we were formed last summer, June 4th, in response to the George Floyd protests, which is why I think it is really amazing and powerful that we are partnering with two mural artists from Minneapolis, because obviously they, felt the grunt of that situation that caused, this international outreach, and, where people were just all out creating public art. So yeah, we started going around and connecting local artists of color with local businesses to start painting all of the board ups. And Barrett and I managed to work with 30 or 40 artists on a really short time span. It was literally overnight that we were getting massive amounts of phone calls from these places that wanted their businesses painted with inspiration after everything that had been happening. So we were able to do that because of our deep roots in the creative community, is send artists out. It was 10, 20 artists every day at a different location in different neighborhoods all over Chicago. So it was a really powerful impact, I think, not only for the communities, but for the artistic community as well. And that is why kind of our mission is to heal the city through art. In my mind, it just goes to show you that, the creative community can come together literally overnight from all diverse backgrounds, ethnicities, demographics, and, do this amazing work to inspire the rest of our, society, basically. So I think, if as creatives we can do that and we create that impact, as a society, there should be a way that we can come together like that too.
And we emphasize Black and Brown artists and Black and Brown businesses, and not to exclude us from working with local white artists or anything like that. It's just more so that we connected with the artists in the communities that have traditionally been marginalized and kind of left out of the grand scope of art, and resources to create art, and resources to create and build their communities. And that was something that Missy and I were very intentional about, and that we put into our, our mission statement, and put into our, kind of like our directive of how we want to move, is to, heal the city through art, but to also learn and grow resources that will support and maintain the artists that we work with. Another thing that we had learned when we started, managing Paint the City, was that a lot of artists, they did not know how to manage, manage their careers, in the sense of, what resources should we go to? How do we do, how do we connect to local businesses? How do we, connect to make murals and things like that? So that was one of the things Missy and I was, definitely on point about, was, hey, so we're gonna figure out how to create these resources, find these resources, and then show the artists that we work with how to maintain these resources that they manage through us.
Yeah. The mural you see here, actually in this slide, was created on the south side of Chicago. It was a collaboration. Yes, 79th and Clyde, to be exact. It's a collaboration of about 7 or 8 artists, once again, that just came out in a day or two's time span, and we all just worked together. And some of these artists haven't even met each other before, and that was the beauty of everybody coming together like that so fluidly, to where you would just send these artists out that didn't know each other, and they would just start creating together. And I think this location was really powerful for all of us too, because so many members in the community came out and would hang out with us the entire time we were there, or stop and talk to us, just because they're not used to seeing these types of things in their community. Next slide. Yeah, I guess Barrett can touch on this since one of these is his pieces.
Yeah. So in the background, the mural itself is actually kind of like an abstraction, and it's a young man with a crown on his head, and that's kind of like one of my signature characters or signature symbols. Actually, is to have the side profiles and fists in them, and it just symbolizes being powerful, being your best self, being who you are, and true to yourself. And then in the foreground, there's an image where there's two women looking at each other. One's a ballerina, and the other is just kind of just looking up at her. I did the image that's on the right of that, and then it's how Pope, which is one of the artists that we work with closely, did the image of the young ballerina, and that's on where it was on the front of the Joffrey Ballet, and that was one of the pieces that we did during the riots. And for me, that particular piece on the right was important to me because my sister, I have a twin sister, she was a ballerina. And I remember just growing up always hearing like, black ballerinas, we need more black ballerinas and etc. So it was very amazing for us to, for Dana and I to be able to collaborate and create this piece. I worked on that piece literally from sun up to sundown the next morning, pulled an all-nighter. And for me, that piece, much like the other pieces that I did during the riots, a lot of them were all-nighters. And for me to experience working on murals at the same time there's rioting going on, and at the same time there's marching going on and cops going, and there's a curfew in place. It was very, I think I always say, I think I had a very, had a lucky, or maybe not lucky, but just a pivotal observation deck, I think, when it came to, creating the artwork, because police didn't mess with me. The rioters didn't mess with me. People walking by, no one bothered me. And in one location, there was, even a kind of like this war going back and forth between Black people and Mexicans. And I was painting in that area and no one messed with me at all. And it really showed me the power of art because, people just knew like, hey, this art is on this building. This is neutral ground. Don't touch it.
Yeah, that just goes back into the perspective of the impact it makes. The other image, it's only part of it's a hotel here on State and Wacker called the Renaissance. And this was probably our biggest project of all artists. There was 17 artists that came together. For this one, it was pretty crazy because I actually did see this place during the riots and protests get knocked down, all the windows and stuff. So it was interesting that we were able to get 17 artists out there all together at the same time to, you can't see all of it because it was so big, but it was literally like a walking gallery for everybody after it was completed. So many people were so impressed just by how much it changed the space, the artwork on that corner did, compared to what it looks like now. I think a lot of people were kind of sad when it was taken down because it was so uplifting and inspiring. And it was a conversation too, for people to have, I think just with each other, but also with the artists too, when they were all painting. There was a lot of interesting dialogue that was created between the community and the artists, and a lot of the community too that, is not familiar with any of these artists and vice versa. So once again, it just goes back to creating stronger relationships within the creative community. And then we can move on to the next.
This piece is located in the Chicago's West Side neighborhood called Austin, specifically located Chicago and Lockwood. And this piece was I would say this piece was one of our biggest statement pieces that we made because it's in a majority Black neighborhood. And when we were approached to create a piece, they said we wanted to speak to the community. And a lot of a lot of it was a bold statement to put the characters, well, not the characters, but the personalities, the people that's in that mural. You can't see, but Malcolm X face is kind of cut out. But it's Malcolm X, it's Angela Davis, it's Harriet Tubman, it's Maya Angelou, and then there's kind of like these characters of women, and there's Storm. There's the Black Power Fist, or the Power Fist, really, not the Black Power, but the Power Fist. And then there's literally like the word slave written behind Storm, and associated with different, like, you know, traditional indigenous African, Native American patterns in the back. So it was a lot. It was a bold statement, and the characters were chosen because of the statements that they made in the support of freeing the minds and the bodies of Black people. And unfortunately, in a lot of the younger generation, they're not taught the history of who these people are. So it's always best to show them. So excuse me if you hear any kids in the background. My kids are trying to eat and play at the same time. And my oldest son's crying.
Yeah, I think that the community really appreciated it, because once again, it's a side of Chicago that doesn't see this sort of thing. And the title being like an ode to our ancestors, I think it was definitely very powerful for them, and just the strong female prominence too that's in the mural. I know a lot of women, like the girl power figure with the girl holding her fist up, you know, it's something that they don't see a lot in a lot of these murals, and it gave them something that they could actually identify with when they're walking around in their community. And then it was the colorful flooring that you see is actually a basketball court that was painted as well. It was also painted into the streets. And now this is an active space. The kids are over there playing basketball all the time. They're hanging out. They have like these painted picnic areas set up where they host, you know, like cultural activations and stuff. So it really provides a safe space, I think, in an area that is known to be pretty violent. And it also gives like the youth, you know, a better outlook on things they can do. And I think it should inspire them too, that, you know, they live in these violent communities, but there are definitely innovative ways to express themselves and, you know, do other things to cope with the violence.
Yeah, that mural is a very activated space. Yeah. They use it all year round.
And that was a collaboration with 4 of us. It was me, Barrett, and then 2 other artists, Dwight White, Enrique the Great. And we all genuinely collaborated on it together in every way possible. So it also it has gotten some awards. It was actually presented at an urban planning conference a few weeks ago in Illinois with the architects that helped design part of the space that you can't see on the streets. So it's definitely gotten a lot of attention. But just once again shows you, you know, how public art can really transform something that, like that area. If you were to walk by there, like last year at this time, it was this parking lot that was nothing. And like it completely transformed that corner. So.
Yeah, this particular mural stands out not only because of, like, you know, the mural itself, but also because of it was a good partnership between urban design and planning and the culture of the neighborhood.
We can go on to the next one. Last one. So yeah, I think Barrett and I, after Paint the City started, and we started to realize like the powerful impact that public art has. I mean, him and I have done a lot of murals before all of this, but we really felt the impact within the community and the need for it to be in the community. So we started thinking about it, you know, and we're like, well, if this has an impact on, you know, the outside of the community, what about all these kids, you know, they're going back to school, they've disengaged for over a year. Like their minds are all over the place right now. Like, how do we provide them with something to create a better learning environment? So we created this Help Paint the City, Paint the Schools program. And that's been our really big campaign this year. I mean, it's going to go on probably inevitably for a long time, because as we get more schools, when one school sees what we do, like another school is like, oh, I want that. And they do see the difference that it changes in like their students' mindset. So I'll talk about one of these. The one in the top right-hand corner, it says equality, where you can see the artist working. That was a partnership with another nonprofit organization called The Simple Good that goes into at-risk communities and teaches kids positivity through art. And we basically held a workshop with the students at this school, and it's in Inglewood, and asked them to talk about what their simple good is, something that's positive or, you know, that they want to address and see in the mural. So not only did they talk about it, but they also created images. And we had the artists reincorporate all of their images, the students' images, actually into the piece itself. And then we did an unveiling of the mural as well, where there's probably, gosh, like 30 or 40 students that we all came and talked in front of about it and got their feedback, and they were so excited. It was one of those things where there was like too many hands raised in the air all the time to answer all their questions and get to them, which was really amazing. But I think the most amazing thing was after we presented the unveiling of it to them, there was like a line of students that came up and hugged all of us and artists individually. And it was like, I don't know, it was very unexpected and just like one of the most heartwarming things to make you realize like, okay, this does actually have an impact on, you know, how they're thinking.
It was the cutest thing ever. I promise you that.
Yeah,
Very unexpected.
I think all of us wanted to cry.
Yeah.
With tears of
and
joy.
in the school where is the top right, that's in Inglewood, and the school below it is a high school. The school above it is in Inglewood, and that's a grammar school, and the school below it is a high school, alternative high school in Inglewood, and that's the cafeteria. That's a mural that was designed by one of the other artists that we work with called Rico the Great, and myself, Missy, and Rico collaborated and created the mural in that cafeteria. Although I have to give more kudos to Missy and Enrico for completing it, because at the time we have so many projects at once that we oftentimes find ourselves in multiple places at once to fulfill all the needs. And then the top left hand corner is the one of the schools another high school that we worked with that's kind of became one of our museums with all the artwork that we've done inside of it. It was called Martin Luther King College Prep, and we've done about 10, maybe 12 murals in there, and there's more to come inside that school as well. And we've been very blessed to be able to go into that school and create and kind of have autonomy in what we create, other than the fact that it's keeping to the theme of, you know, student empowerment, Black empowerment. In that high school, because that's the majority of that population is Black, and it also has the legacy name of Martin Luther King. So, so the principal and the students and staff really enjoy it when we come in. They kind of just know we're part of the team now, the staff now. We just know we're coming in and we just go get our stuff and we just go work while the students are there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it just kind of shows you, you know, what art can do for a space. When you think about it, you would never notice that the, you know, bottom piece is inside of an actual school cafeteria. It looks like a gallery. A hallway on the top piece, it looks like a gallery when you walk through it, and their cafeteria as well is filled with artwork. You know, you can also see like the variety too of the aesthetics of the artists we work with. So we're really able to provide a lot of different elements for the students as well. It's not just kind of one theme or one aesthetic. Like everybody has their own flavor that they bring to the table. And like I said, this is a program we're going to continue, and we definitely work heavily with the staff and the students when we do create these pieces. So Barrett and I really want to develop this almost into an after school matters program as well, to really get the students more engaged in working with us. So anyway, I want to say thank you. And I think a lot of this there's a lot of synergies here with what Zara does in Mexico with their school program and our school program. And then Bo and Leon, like what, the mural we're going to do together with them, both of us, feeling the powerful impact art had after the protests, how all of us experienced that one-on-one. So I think this is like a really, really good relationship for us.
Let's go.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry, every now and then I have two sons that come in and bombard me. They don't see me after a while. So that just happened again. But to Missy's point, we are very excited to be collaborating with Zara. And I think that this was an amazing concept and idea that Patricia had to bring us together to uphold the legacies of creating murals and artwork, because it does change people's lives and perspectives, and it's a very powerful agent of change. So thank you all.
Thank you so much. It's really great to see the work that you two have been doing, and we have a little less than 20 minutes for Q&A. I do want to ask one opening question, and then I'm going to invite everyone who's joined us to pose any questions that you might have. But I wonder, Bo and Leon, if you could say a little bit more about what you're thinking about with the mural project that you're planning to do, even just like what maybe some of the themes are. Maybe it's still in the formative stages and you don't have it all kind of mapped out, but it would be great to hear a little bit more about just kind of some of the things that you're thinking about. I mean, obviously thinking about George Floyd and everything that followed his murder and the protests and artistic interventions that have happened. But is there anything that you can say about kind of what's on your agenda for it?
Yes, definitely.
Go first?
Yeah, sure, I can go first. I mean, I know there are a ton of things on my mind, and I know that like I have to narrow it down, and we are definitely still in the first parts of like figuring out exactly what is going to go into the mural, like in terms of like symbology and language and all of that. But what I can say for sure about our mural is that we do want to talk about racial justice and like how that pertains to San Miguel in particular, because like just from our experience living there, and we lived there for 5 years, there is a huge difference in the way that people who have really light skin, like
expats,
right, like specific people who have like come, like immigrants from the US who are white. There's a huge population of expats who are white who have come into San Miguel, and then there is also a huge community of indigenous people, and then also just like people who have darker skin in San Miguel who are severely impoverished. And there's also a huge indigenous community in San Miguel that is extremely impoverished. And we want to talk about a lot of times in Mexico, we've just heard from like
your dad,
well, conversations on the street, and then like conversations with like family members, that racism isn't really taken as seriously in Mexico as it is in the US. And we want to talk about in our mural the fact that like racism is real in Mexico, and colorism specifically is real in Mexico, because
it's seen as something that's not taken as seriously, but then for us as people who Spanish isn't our first language, when you start to learn that certain people who look a certain way are called different words, you learn, okay, yes, there is clearly a way that people are treated differently. And so that's something that, like, as an outsider and insider perspective, we've been able to have, like, people who, anyone who's indigenous is referred to as a certain word. Anyone who is Asian is referred to as, like, the Chinese. Anyone who is Black is referred to as a specific word.
Right, there's a huge,
and that's normalized.
Right, there's a huge, like, it feels like a separation between every single group when you just talk about it on like a person to person level. And we really want to, in our mural, like, combat that and say, hey, why are we making all of these
categorizations?
Why are we making all of these categories? Why are we treating certain people like they're so much less than us? And we want to make a statement with our mural that, like, not that we are all the same, because of course we all experience different things, and there can be experiences, especially, like, just speaking in San Miguel, like, I know that there are experiences for people who have darker skin, and then specifically people who are indigenous, where they have no access to certain things that other people take for granted, like clean water,
internet,
education, housing, all of those things. And we want to make a clear statement to people in our town that, like, even though this is an institution, even though this is a school, we don't believe in separating people who may be seen as, like, less than us from us. And we care as an institution about bringing people in.
And like, also specifically with art, there are a lot of protests in Mexico. Like, there was a massacre of students in 1968, and that is, like, something that really shaped the way that artists viewed art, because a lot of the protest material was, after a couple of decades when it was preserved, considered art. And from then until now, there have been a lot of artistic movements in the area of feminism that have been considered art. And there have been a lot of separate but kind of similar ways that art in Mexico, or protests in Mexico, have been, after a couple of decades, considered art, which I think we both want to include, because it's something that we've seen in our student body that has been important to us as well as other students. So there was a feminist protest where most of the students, as well as, like, most of the women in Mexico, didn't participate in the entire day. So we stayed home, we didn't go on social media, we didn't interact with anyone at all. And it's to show what the world would be like if women were to disappear in the way that femicides intend for us to disappear. And then after that, we did a women's march. And from our school, it was maybe 5 young women. And that's actually a big part of our student body. So we know that, like, there are specific issues that our student body is interested in seeing.
And then also specific issues that are specific to San Miguel, such as, like, it's basically, there's a really large gap between people who live within the inner city and then people who live on the outskirts of the city. And it does have a lot to do with colorism and classism, and we really want to address those issues as well as the feminism issue within San Miguel in our mural. So that's what we want to talk about.
Would I be able to add one thing? I think Bo and Leon had explained that greatly, but I think also, I mean, art and education is huge. And here in Mexico, and I believe in the States also, education is a complete luxury and it's a privilege. Yes. And so for those of us who have the opportunity, well, I believe that each one of us as an individual, we should make that positive impact and help share the knowledge that we have with our community, right? Exactly. And that's what we try to do with working in the community or working with a special needs school, that is a special education school here in San Miguel. And what I always tell the students, and I think Leon and Bo highly demonstrate that, is that even in the university community, even if you're just a student, or if you have 16 years old or you're 12, you can make a positive impact in our community. And the only thing that you have to show is understanding, compassion, patience, and love. Those are the only things that you need to have. So, I mean, even in the community in Lagunilla, where we're working, Maria is a single mom in the sense that her husband went to the United States to work on a farm. I think he was an illegal immigrant working. And so his role as a father is to make money and send it back to the community. And most times these fathers may have another wife and another family, I don't know, and I'm not stereotyping this, but their role and the importance is to go to the United States and to provide for the family. So when meeting Maria, I went to shake her hand and she pulled her hand away so quickly and said that her hands are a disgrace and that they're ugly. And she mentioned this because she had sunspots in her hands. And it wasn't, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just like this moment, you know, and I told her she had the most beautiful hands I've ever seen, because if they're hands of a woman that works for her family, that loves her family. She grows the food for the household, she cleans, she does laundry, she cooks and makes sure that her children go to school. I mean, these are outstanding women that have maybe had second or third grade at maximum opportunity to study, you know? So even within the marginalization groups in Mexico, they even marginalize themselves. And it's just something that, you know, it's not okay, but they have been taught that and they've been shown that their entire life. So, you know, just by doing positive acts of kindness, like the work that Barry and Messy do, I mean, just bringing a positive outlook to the community and showing what the opportunities are.
Yeah, I would just I was, excuse me, just going to tie that to Barrett and Missy's work, thinking about education and thinking about, so like, obviously like the work in the schools, but also I was really struck and even thinking about the connection to the mural, the, you know, kind of earlier mural movement, the Ode to Our Ancestors mural in Austin, how much that is about kind of a way of teaching history and kind of using history to be affirming and thinking about like girl power and having people see themselves, and young women, young Black women seeing themselves reflected in the what a mural is representing. I think that seems really important. We have like 6 minutes left. I want to see if there are any questions from audience members who are who've been very patient and stayed with us and listened. Anyone have any questions for the speakers?
A question. So when it comes time to doing murals and the location of them and whose property it is, how do you get that approval to do the mural in the space that you identify?
It varies. Like the board ups were a little easier because it wasn't permanent on anybody's businesses necessarily. There were some that were on the businesses, but yeah, it can be a process. especially in Chicago, it can definitely be a process. Can definitely be a process. I mean, our biggest thing, like the Chicago Loop Alliance that we work with, has helped us secure murals downtown because those are the businesses they work really closely with. We've talked to the Chamber of Commerce's in different areas. That's been a really good positive outreach for us to get businesses to allow us. And then if it's just somebody that we know personally.
Did you experience people telling you no, though? Did you have any no's along the way? Quite a few.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was actually a really bad experience in Elmwood Park for the board ups that an artist had that basically he was told to stop painting. It was a very racist encounter because they didn't like what he was putting on it, and he sent me a photo, and it was of two women of color sitting in meditative poses across from each other. It was a beautiful piece, but it was obviously whoever was talking to him, it was a very racist sort of situation that he encountered, which kind of just says why we're still doing this.
In Mexico,
Ultimately, it's the sorry, I was gonna say, ultimately, it's the owner's right to approve the mural. So if we have an okay from the owner, then we're okay to go. But to Missy's point, sometimes the community might have a say so, and that particular community was not as accepting to people of color. So.
What about
So
in
we
Mexico?
decided not to do it to keep our artists safe.
In Mexico, there are actually a lot of state-funded murals. I know I've seen a few in Minneapolis as well, but in San Miguel de Allende, and then also just in Mexico as a whole, they pay people.
Yeah, we've seen teachers do it
to make murals pretty often, just because it's a really popular art form there, and something that, I mean, obviously really brings the community together. Like we've seen in Mexico murals about asking people for consent.
Yes. Like saying like a mural that says, "I don't touch someone unless they ask me to."
Right. I don't give someone a hug unless they say it's okay.
And like, I throw away my trash.
Right. They do.
I recycle.
Community-based projects that are murals, and they do things alongside of schools a lot of the time that have positive affirmations and positive images for the children that are going to school.
I mean, it's not something that I didn't visit Mexico. I didn't leave the country before going to college in Mexico. So Bo was used to it. Bo has family in Mexico, but being Mexican, I hadn't gone out of the country. So when I first experienced like, oh, we're going down the highway and there are a bunch of murals, like I asked Bo and Bo's dad about like, oh, is it just this specific state? Is it because we're in Mexico City? And they were like, no, you'll see it along all highways and everything. It's a really like,
there is a strong history of muralism in Mexico, and then there's also a really strong graffiti community there who do things without the government's permission and who want to say things and make their message known without government's permission. And that is definitely also, like, in my eyes, very much a valid art form, because people will say things over, because I mean, we even in Mexico have murals for presidential or I don't know the
governmental
word. Like when the governor wants to have a new campaign.
I don't know.
Political
Gubernatorial.
Right. Gubernatorial campaigns. Even that, there will be a mural for him. And then people will go and cover that up with their own art, or like say something on a little part of that where it's like, I actually disagree with you, and this is my own little slogan that I'm gonna put here. And we have definitely like felt that influence of like street art is so important and it's just everywhere in Mexico, and that is so cool. It's so cool to be able to like express your opinions and express your ideas.
I've never been able to see that much like street art than when I was in Mexico City, because even in San Miguel, like a lot of times it's covered up. But in Mexico City, especially, and like getting into Mexico City, you can literally see the reasons why, like, I don't support this candidate because of A, B, and C. And like seeing that like type of street art is so cool, because I also don't see street art about like, here's why you should vote for this person. So it was like the biggest culture shock for me at 18, like got a passport and then immediately left, and then just experienced Mexico in its fullest, not really knowing Spanish, but just kind of figuring things out and thinking about it like on the bus ride and being like, oh, that wasn't
people really express their political opinions through art, and that is it's been so influential for both of us.
It's super cool.
So
a lot of it in Mexico either is you have a specific direct application for a grant, and if you can explain yourself enough, they'll most likely give you the grant. And if not, like, I mean, haven't done it, but there are some like pretty
there are graffiti artists who definitely they do it without permission, but they get their political message out there, and it's really inspiring either way.
I feel like they're both pretty valid ways of expressing yourself.
Cool. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I think we're at a little after 7:30. I think I'm hoping though that this conversation will continue in a number of other ways over the course of the coming months as Bo and Leon are working on their project, and together with Missy and Barrett. And I know Missy and Barrett have really wonderful things in the works. It was really just amazing to see all those images. Patricia, I don't know if you wanted to say anything in closing.
Sure. I wanted to thank all of you guys for participating. I think it was a very rich conversation. For Bo and Leon, if you want to drive through Chicago before you head back to Mexico, we'd love to welcome you here. And Zara, thank you for being so open to this collaboration, and to Missy and Barrett for reciprocating that interest. So we hope you'll hear more from us very shortly. I'm looking forward to getting your presentations. We're going to share it in our magazine, and we just started a podcast, so I think we have other places we can share this conversation. And Rebecca, lastly, thank you for being such an erudite person on this topic and giving us a great way to kick it off. So everyone, thanks so much. Keep looking at our social media sites. Please follow us, Instagram, Facebook, and then look for our YouTube channel. We'll have some of this stuff uploaded there as well. And currently you can find programs that we've done in the past. So we appreciate your support, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
That share, Zara.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.